Trying something new today from the workshop here. I've got in front of me a rig from Worship Tutorials, my buddy Bradford Mitchell. Let me move this. We're going to be working on this thing today. Let me back it out. There it is. We're going to be working on this thing today, and going to get a chance to follow along a little bit. And this is a cool opportunity for those of you that want to know how to do certain techniques in real time. This is a little bit better area for me to be able to demonstrate specifics that I can't really do it when I'm in my office or anything like that. So this will be a little bit easier to show some things, show what's going on. So yeah, I'm going to start working on it, and if anything comes to mind, things you want to talk about, things you want me to show, I can pause and pivot to those things, whether that's a soldering technique or a pedal mounting technique or a power technique, whatever that might be. We can kind of go through it, and then if you have generalized pedalboard questions, we can always also go through that. So feel free to interject with a comment at any time, and we'll get going. Hey Corey, good morning. I want to put the focus on the pedal board, however, and then I got my iPad down here to kind of manage the questions. So we'll go from there. And as always, if you like what we're doing, thumbs up always goes a long way. Subscribing goes a long way. So any of those things are easy, free ways to contribute. Let's go back to the board. So one thing that I need to do that I haven't done yet, I'll open up the board here and I'll kind of tilt it this way so you can see it a bit. So we've got two O-highs here. These are going to go up into the top row because we have so many devices that are going to be living on the top row here. This is one of our new pedal board systems, so it's got our buffered interface box, it's got the magnetic latches, and it's also got the power module so that we can have our power route out the side here instead of coming out the back. Not that that's a huge deal, but with some of the supplies like chalks and stuff like that, it can be problematic. So in any case, we got this stuff, and yeah, I'm gonna start wiring in some power today. I'm also probably going to be mounting a few pedals to the top here that need to be hard mounted in with bolts. So we're gonna start doing that. Let's go look at some questions here. And good morning, Gianni from Italy. Oh, and dang, cool, man. Glad you used the schematics to build some of your own. And Corey says, if I got room for one more pedal, what do you prioritize, octave or EQ? I think EQ is probably the most valuable. And way to route the O-highs on the bottom of the, oh, I think he means of the lift. Yeah, I think when they fit, it's great, because you're able to we're able to really get them up here quickly. We don't have to have super long cable lengths if they're right underneath. We don't have to get into these really monster cables. But these are our power supply cables that we actually have custom made that come in, I think they're 42 inches long. So pretty much, any conceivable length would be workable on these. And these can actually handle, or they're designed to handle up to 24 volts DC and 2 amps of current without any change in voltage. So they're much better grade than most of the stuff out there. And we also have an 1/8 inch version made as well, which is really cool. So that means we can pretty much accommodate anything. So these are what we're going to be using throughout this rig. Usually my technique for power is I just kind of put everything in and then I'll kind of route into the supplies. So I'll start at the pedal side, and then I'll move everything into the supplies wherever they need to be. And I think on this we only have a few, I think we have maybe a few odd voltage ones, but for the most part everything's 9. And again, if you have a question as we go, feel free to interject, and we can break for questions. Let's see, a few questions here. Can somebody explain what worship music is? I'll let a real worship musician probably explain that, but typically we're talking about music that's being played in houses of worship. So this is not necessarily exclusively restricted to contemporary Christian music, but is most generally associated with it. Do you have a custom power supply cables for chocks? Well, these power supply cables work for whatever. We're terminating the opposite end where you can kind of see the red and black wires. Those can go to anything. So if it's a chocks, then I'm just going to reach up here and I'm going to grab my RCA plugs, and now I can wire a chocks, because that would go into the chock side, and the pedal sides are all standardized. Those are not using RCAs, so that's how we do it. Good morning, Jason from Taiwan. Welcome. And this is from Jacob. He says, I'm about to build a board for a worship dude. Stoked to watch this. Using one of your boards too. Wonderful. And have you tried the Bestronix trick of mounting the Ojai and Zuma, but with power grip tape? Also, were you able to figure out the epoxy trick for the DC plastic plugs? Well, I think what Bestronix does, this is what Total Evo is asking, what Bestronix does is they take the Ojais, which are here, and they have like a bracket, and they actually drill it into the Zuma so it's bolted. You could do that with dual lock if you wanted. The main reason, or power grip, whatever Velcro fastening system you use, to me the reason not to do that is it extends the length of the power cables, and I'm trying to operate within the lengths of the cables that we have and try to keep them short as possible, especially just more for ease of use in kind of the crowdedness of having tons of cables, especially since we have 2 of these. We have to have 2 side by side. There's not an easy way to wrap them around, so it's a little bit more convenient for us to do it in this particular fashion. So you could mount them on top of here with dual lock, there'd be no problem, or with power grip, there'd be no problem whatsoever. It's just this is a little bit more efficient way, I think, to do it, and it keeps the amount of cabling that has to kind of go over the top. Because right here we only have 3 connections in essence that are going to travel from the bottom to the top row. So I'm trying to limit the amount of back and forth here, whereas these can all just remain on the top tier. It keeps it a little bit easier. So that's my approach, and the reason why I didn't put them on top like that. It's not, one is not necessarily better than the other. I think it just depends on how you plan to do it and what your approach is and what you think is easiest for you to execute. I think that this is an easier way to execute it. And then in terms of the epoxy trick, what he's saying there, for those people who don't know, when Bestronix makes a power cable, they're using like a Kobicon power cable like this, and they're soldering in their connector, and then they're filling this whole thing with epoxy, and then they're closing it up. And so they don't need to use a zip tie here in order to keep it shut. Technically these should stay shut, but I use a zip tie that I tie to the back of these. The problem with doing the epoxy thing is that if there's ever an issue, you could never repair this. It's done. So you have to cut it off and re-terminate from the beginning. And just having built some rigs there with them, I don't think it's a preferable way to do it. And this is a matter of taste. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just, the ability to be able to repair them, usually if there's a failure, it's generally not the plug, it's usually the solder connection. So if somebody has a mistake with their soldering, or they overheat, something or whatever, there's some sort of intermittent issue, they can't deal with it, they just have to replace the entire cable. And sometimes that can be a real pain in the butt, especially if you have to replace the cable that's a long cable and you have to like reroute the whole thing through, and you can't just cut it down because the length is too short. It becomes a little bit harder of a workaround from a troubleshooting standpoint. So I don't use that technique. David, yeah, major flexing. Well, this isn't my rig, but yeah, it is the great group of pedals here. And let's see, Chris Carlson. Recommendations on loop switchers, true bypass, or other for giant 20 to 30 pedal board for at-home use, no MIDI. I think it just depends if you need combinations, Chris. If you have combinations, then certainly you're going to need. I realize this. I guess when I'm talking to people, I should probably put this up. When you have combinations that you want all to go on at the same time, then certainly having the switcher, the MIDI programmable switcher, is beneficial, because you can bring in all these things at one time. Let me just adjusting the light here, it's a little intense. So you can adjust everything at one time. You can hit one button, have multiple things come on, so that could be a real benefit if you need that function. If you just want to have kind of each pedal come on individually, yeah, Zeke's back there. Hey, Zeke. So I think that it just kind of depends on what it is that you need, and if you're okay with just turning one pedal on at a time, they can be great to just use a switcher, just a true bypass looper rather. And then if you need to have combos, then have a switcher. And the best way to do that, most switchers don't have 30 loops, but with like an RGM or something like that, you can expand it with their like PVC6X looper section. That's basically the PVC6X without the foot switches, and so you can expand those out to multiples in series and still be able to move around the order within that actual switcher. So that's how I would do it if you were thinking you would have that many. If you're gonna have that many pedals and you wanted to have all that, you can get 30 pedals in there, and it's a pretty great system. Let's see, what else we got? This is from a person knows rep. Is this going to be an ampless rig? No, this is amped. As far as I'm aware, this is amped. So it'll be a stereo system. Let's see, what else we got? Hello from Guam. Hey, Francisco. What's up, man? And Dominique, what's up, man? Hello, my friend from France. Let's see, episode red. I get major feedback on my worship rig and don't really know how to fix it. Any tips? Now, when you say feedback, you just mean like when you point your guitar at your amp, it like feeds back, or I guess I need to know more how you're defining feedback. Like, do you just have like it just feeds back all the time? It's oscillation. This could be your pickups. If you have like unpotted pickups or something like that, maybe clarify more what you mean on that. Let's see, Joel. We're doing some pedalboard building and documenting it in real time here and taking some Q&A. So join us. Should be fun. And Domi's all in on gig rig as his recommendation. Gerardo, greetings from Chile. I have a multi-effect. Do I need a line isolator? I don't know, what are you calling a line isolator? Like a galvanic isolation box for it? If you're running stereo to amplifiers, you might. But if you're just running direct, you probably don't. Yeah. Okay, here's episode Reddit's clarifying the feedback thing. When the volume pedal is down on both guitars, there can be buzzing, and when the volume pedal is up, feedback can get worse when I have my overdrives or just even one. Happens with both my electric guitars. Well, it depends where the volume pedal is, because you will get noise if you have an overdrive on after the volume pedal. So if the volume pedal's first and you cut that off, the noise from the pedals is still going through. You've only cut off the guitar volume. If you think that there's something wrong, these are things I would check. I would look at power supply. Do you have an isolated power supply that's a high quality, preferably switch mode, especially if you're using a pedal train or something where the power supply is underneath the pedals. So you have power supply, pedals on top. This is a problem if it's a linear power supply, like a Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 2, 4x4, Mondo, Pedal Power Digital, ISO 5. These are all linear power supplies that can be problematic if you have pedals on top of them, and it's worse the more that you draw against the total amount of current. So the magnetic field intensifies the more the current you use. So if you say, for example, you have a power supply that has a 2 amp max of available power, and you're at 2 amps. You've drawn all 2 amps out of it for all of your pedals to power them all and give them the right current. Your magnetic field is going to be way more intensified than if you were only drawing, let's say, 1 amp. So the more you draw against it, the worse and more intensified the magnetic field becomes, the more noise that can possibly be generated. This is when you see me building old school rigs before we had this whole system. I would have the power supply all the way in the corner and usually nothing on top of it, because of that problem. You just have to keep it away from everything. Putting stuff on top of it is a nightmare, and it can have a lot of issues. So definitely something to consider if it's not that. Otherwise, I would just do my normal troubleshooting technique. I would go to the last pedal, I would plug into it, go into the amp, test that, see how it sounds, then go one more pedal back. Let's pretend that let's say your last 3 pedals, just for the purposes of this explanation, let's say your last 3 pedals are a stereo chorus, a stereo delay, and a stereo reverb that go into the amp. I would go to the last pedal, guitar into reverb, reverb into amp, test it. How does it work? Everything's fine, add in the next pedal, guitar into delay, delay into reverb, reverb into amp. Test it again. Is it working? If it's okay, then add in one more. Guitar into chorus, chorus into delay, delay into reverb, reverb into amp. Is it still working? You just keep going backwards until you start to see whether the noise is something that's restricted to a particular pedal, or if this is accumulation. As you add in each pedal, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. That can help you isolate if it's a pedal problem or if it's a cable problem. That's an easier way to identify those things. So I would recommend doing that if you're wondering about how to isolate it. Let's see. Pilar, my pleasure. And Francisco was clarifying that gas means gear acquisition syndrome. I have one of those rechargeable ones from Amazon. Yeah, so I would say that could be a problem, because the rechargeable ones are not always necessarily designed for audio applications, and even the ones that purport that they are, these are the cheap Amazon ones. You know, they're cheap for a reason. You can't check all the boxes for great tone and have it be $20. Let's see, Pilar, I'm building a rig but don't have enough outputs on my power supply. Can I feed 2 pedals on the same output? You can if they're low current overdrive. So let's pretend, looking at this rig, and let's pretend we didn't have enough outputs. What would be good candidates here that we could, let me put this down so you can see what I'm seeing. What would be a good candidate here to combine for pedals that would be decent for combining? Well, typically I think of a couple things. I think of, 1, are they analog? 2, are they falling into the category of sort of overdrive, distortion, wah, boost? Those are all good categories. Typically stuff with clocks can be problematic, so that would be like analog, flangers, phasers, chorus, tremolo. Sometimes those can be problematic in certain contexts depending on who built it. The other thing I think of is it low current? Is it analog, low current, mostly in the drive zone? So in this particular rig, I would say like things like King of Tone might be a good one. Protein might be a good one. Katana might be a good one. Steel String might be a good one. This kilt might be a good one, which we haven't mounted on there yet, but that could be a good one. Those would be examples on this board that you might consider. Even the buffer, if it takes 9 volts, these are usually pretty low current. I think ours draw about 100 milliamps, but it's all analog. So this could even be a potential. So I would look for stuff like that as possible places to combine stuff. I would not do digital devices like the delays, the reverbs. Even digital tuners can often have some oscillation in certain contexts. I wouldn't do the gravitas normally, even though this is analog, because again, it's got a clock in it, you know, because you can sometimes in certain conditions hear that clock oscillate through in shared power situations at times. So that is that's what I would say there. All right, let's see. What do you recommend for a stereo buffer? Well, ours will be out very soon. I'm thinking in a couple of weeks here, we're gonna have the version that's built into this pedal board. That will be one option, and then there'll be another one that'll kind of be in like a standardized, it won't be in this exact box. Like this is like a Hammond 15. It'll be in this, about this size. It's actually, ours is slightly narrower than this. It's all custom made though. It's not like the die cast casing. We'll have another one that has the exact same options. So it'll have input buffer, output buffers for mono or stereo, 4 cable method, 5 cable method, wet, dry, wet, all in one box. And I think it'll be about $200. And then if you wanted to do it right now, there really isn't any stereo options. The one stereo version that existed from Empress is no longer available, so you could you could try to find it on Reverb, but otherwise I'd say you're going to be building one of our DIY kits probably. Let's see. Okay, this is from Total Evo. One thing I've heard recently as far as tuners go is that the tuner on the PVC 6X is not all that accurate. Not sure if that's true or not. No, it's not true. Somebody made that up. Somebody made that up that is not qualified to speak on tuners. But you know, when you see something on the gear page or whatever, you don't know if it's just, you know, John Smith in his living room that, you know, heard from one of his other friends that the Peterson Strobo Stomp is the only, you know, tuner that you can use. Let me put it this way: the most accurate tuner that's out there, I think, is the Sonic Research tuner. And I'll tell you this: we put 4 of them on our NAMM booth demo boards for like silent rigs, or no, we had 6 of them. And those were the tuner on every single rig, and that's the most accurate tuner out there, strobe tuner. And I would say I'd never had so many issues with people not understanding how to even use the pedal. They couldn't even tune with a strobe tuner. And so they would say, oh, I can't get this guitar in tune, this tuner doesn't work. And so we ended up having to just put clip-on tuners on every one of the guitars after the first day because so many people didn't even know how to use a strobe tuner. So I think that you know, I think that people who are complaining about accuracy, and presumably the people that are coming to the NAMM show that are there as consumers and not there with businesses, which has kind of become the trend at NAMM, that it's not really a trade show anymore. It's like a who's who of, you know, who I was able to get a NAMM pass. None of those people even knew how to use a strobe tuner. Couldn't even use a Sonic Research tuner. So that's laughable. So for people to be like, yeah, the RJM is, they don't know what they're talking about. Is this Bradford's board? Yes, Ren, this is Bradford's board. Did you notice a short lag when in toggle mode, toggling overdrive distortion in the Nova Drive? I put my old Nova Drive back on my board. I mean, there might be a short delay in the way that it switches. I don't know if you're doing it manually on the foot switches or in MIDI. I mean, it's not going to be the same as like a mechanical switch, like a, you know, like this, where it's automatic. Sometimes with some of the relays, they'll have like a discharge component so that you don't get any sort of audible pop, and sometimes that can create a delay of some kind because they will dissipate the input signal, so if there is a pop sound, that it'll, it basically has already gone through the system before the audio actually comes in. That could be something that they're doing here. All right, greetings from Germany. Yes. Chris, the bulk Voodoo Lab power cables that you recommend, do the ends come soldered if you don't have them cut down to size, or do you recommend soldering new ends? Yeah, so I recommend soldering new ends and just getting the ones that are blunt cut, because they have some that come blunt, like the power cables that we now sell. Let me grab one. So these are the power cables that we sell through our website that can be custom made to any length. So they got one molded side, just like how you'd get on a Voodoo Lab. And then the other side is what's called blunt cut. So it's just the two wires are exposed, and of course you can cut this down to whatever length you want. So we get these in, I think these are 42 inches. And so we got them like basically all super long. And then when somebody orders one, we pull it out, we measure it to the size they want, cut it, and re-terminate it. And I would essentially do that the same thing if I were using a Voodoo Lab pedal power cable or the bulk cables. They do sell some that are like this, where they're just, they have one side that's not terminated. But that's how I would do it, whether it is terminated or not. Cut it to the length you need and then resolder it on one side. And I would usually put them molded in on the pedals, because this is typically what's going to get a little bit more abuse. And then I would put the newly terminated side on the power supply. This is from Michael. I'm pretty handy at soldering, but my Pog 2 has a bit of a foot switch, or has a bad foot switch that's really loud. Any suggestions on how to change that bad boy out? Well, I think that the Pog is all, in fact, I think I have a foot switch. I actually have a foot switch from a Pog. So it comes on it has a ribbon wire, it has a PC board. So what you're gonna do is you're going to remove all the solder here. So what I would do is, you're gonna use a solder sucker like this. And what I would do is I'd actually re-solder, reflow all this solder, put this like new solder. It sounds counterintuitive, but using, if you don't have a desoldering tool, using like existing solder and actually like really loading this up with a lot of solder will help reflow this, and it'll help actually like release it a little easier. And then you'll heat up each individual lug, you'll desolder each one of them, you'll get this guy loose, pull the foot switch, and then you can put a new foot switch right in its place because it's already got that PC board. Just be careful to like limit the flexibility. These ribbon wires are actually pretty stiff, so if you're moving this around a lot, you could get a break somewhere in here, and it's a real pain to redo that. So I would recommend doing it in that way. And then secondly, getting a new foot switch. So the best ones, I think, let's see if I got some here. Where are my foot switches? Just looking for them, hold on. This is important because not all foot switches are created equally. Here we go. I would get an Alpha 3-pull double throw foot switch. I think these are the best out there, the best quality. So I'd put an Alpha in its place. This thing is mechanically the most quiet of any of the butt contact foot switches. It's also the most durable. And let's see, is this one a PC board mounted? It looks like actually it's not a PC board mounted, so you want to get the one with the lugs on it. So I would get that one to replace. If it's the exact same Pog as what's on this board, this is the foot switch that was in it, and it was just changed because it was outfitted with a MIDI for one of Bradford's buds did it for him. So, but they included this switch, so I was able to show you. Let's see. Pilar, good advice, a compressor that would be a good option to, I don't know, maybe you complete that sentence later on, but we'll have to talk about good compressors. In Studio 412, we actually just talked about that, and we talked about the technique that you want to use, where you need to be making sure that you're using analog devices that you're sharing power with, preferably something without a clock, so distortion, overdrive, boost, maybe buffers. Those are typically the best ones. Wah would also be in that category. And then that they are low current, and you don't want to do anything digital. Tuners are digital. Sometimes people forget that, and they try to, daisy chain tuners. Those can often have an oscillation. So just be aware. But you can also go back in the video here if you want to hear a better, more in-depth explanation. Greg Lewis. What's crazy is that last week I was searching through all your videos to find if you have a live video of you working on a pedalboard in real time. We do. They're pretty old, though. I would say a couple years old. But we do have some. Oh yeah, in the background, that's Zeke. He's right back there. Huh, Zeke? Yeah, you're a good boy. He likes to watch outside. There's a lot of kitty cats that hang out in the neighborhood, and so he likes to watch them. Planet URF. Would love to see more bass pedal boards built. Saw that you did one a few months ago, but didn't get a chance to see Sweetwater's video about it. Yeah, I think that Robert, the guy that I built it for, he had some family tragedies that kind of, changed a little bit of his schedule. I think that they're going to get to it soon enough, but certainly the bass pedal board priority didn't supersede a family tragedy. So, I didn't have any, any reason to try to get them to do it faster. But we have some bass pedal board stuff planned. I'm going to be doing some stuff hopefully with Yannick Kuzdala, who's an amazing bass player, plays with Bob Reynolds, has a great YouTube channel as well. So shout out to Yannick, and also an amazing tennis player. Whenever I'm in town, we'll hit some tennis balls around over at his club. Let's see. Lucas, what would you recommend for an all-in-one modulation solution? Looking at the GFI systems, synesthesia, Zoya, Mobius, thoughts. This is not a cool answer, but I think that the Boss MD is actually the coolest, because most of the modulation stuff that most people are into, it's Boss, CE2s, a vintage CE2, a CE1, a Dimension C, a Dimension D. A lot of those were all Boss products, and who better to write the coding and the algorithm for those sorts of products than Boss themselves. And I have to say, we used an MD200 on Isaiah Sharkey's rig pretty recently, and I was just impressed at how great all those things sounded. Like, there was no throwaways on there, and it has a true bypass option, believe it or not. So I think that sound-wise, it was pretty great. I was very impressed. It wasn't a lot of money. I know Bradford loves the Zoya on this board, so certainly people dig that one too. I'll get a little bit more of a chance to experiment with it as we get a little further into this rig. Yeah, I think the Boss, man, is, people are sleeping on it. And the DD500 too is great for delay. This is my favorite go-to MIDI delay, DD500. It sounds great. And do I make many acoustic boards? No. I mean, not lately. I did a few kind of earlier on when I was starting out, and I haven't done any in a while, although I think I'm going to be doing one for David Ryan Harris here, in the next month or so. Will be kind of like a solo acoustic board. And David Ryan Harris is one of the other background vocalists / guitar players in John Mayer's band. So we'll be doing a solo board for him for his acoustic stuff. And Mason Mejia, do you have a good recipe for collard greens? Man, Let's see, I might have some good collards right now. I'll tell you my recipe. You want another recipe, Mejia? Let's do it. I think we got some collards. No, actually we just have kale, or chard. We have some kale. We have any collards? No, I think we ate them all. We ate them all. But the best recipe for collards is actually getting some really good red wine vinegar and some garlic. All right, the collard green recipe, yeah, you need onions, maybe some garlic, some bacon fat, saute that down, throw in some high quality red wine vinegar just to give it a little bit of a bite, cut through all that fattiness of the bacon all day. All right, start working on a little of this. Some like the tuner, because it's out here all by itself, it's not likely to change. I'll probably make this like a super short run and just keep as little exposed on the top as possible. I'll probably just route that guy down immediately. Probably same with this guy, the quartz. There's probably not much of a likelihood that this would come off, since this is kind of a key ingredient of the rig, so we can kind of bring that off the shelf right away. I'm kind of just thinking about how this is going to look in real time, and just kind of eliminating, trying to keep cables that I know are not going to be, that don't really need that much accessibility. There's not much of a reason that it would be variable, kind of keeping that off the board. And I might follow it with this Big Sky here, put like a couple of timeouts right there. All right, let's bring this guy down. There we go. All right, so I'm working up here in the corner. I'll give you a little bit better view here. Let me get the lighting a little more dialed for this. Should be good-ish. So over here in the corner, I'm trying to figure out kind of how I want to route these cables. I'm working kind of in one side here. I know that the Big Sky, this could be something that would be changed perhaps at some point in the future. Quartz is likely not going to change. Tuner is likely not ever going to change. So in terms of the amount of slack that I'll leave in the power cables on these devices is going to be minimal, because they're likely not going to move. Once they're down, this is kind of two essentials of the rig. Whereas this guy, it could be variable, so I'm going to try to leave a little bit more space here and really release the tension. I've put two zip tie tie-down mounts here. You could put a third here, although that's going to kind of stress out this particular cable, so I'm probably just going to stick with those two. Since stress is a consideration when we're dealing with cables, we don't want to undermine the cable quality or the quality of the connection by having too hard of a break on the actual cable itself. So I'll kind of like partially tie that down, get the connectors exactly in place where I want them, and then I'll add in my second one, and then really tighten them up really tight after I kind of have everything in position. So I'm kind of verifying that I have kind of the amount of slack that I want. Once I do, I'll just tighten them up as tight as I can get them, cut them away. So I've got these guys these three guys are now routed. And those will go under to this first Ojai here. So I have enough for, what's that, 5 on the Ojai, 3, 4, 5. So far, I'll have these three guys on the Ojai, and I'll probably move, I'm gonna have 2 guys here as well, because I'm gonna mount this guy up here, the Gravitas. That'll be 4. That'll be 5, and then this Cali 76 is going to be going there. I'll pull this back a little bit so you can see a little better. So as far as the look, this will be, so we'll have 1, 2, 3. These guys are routed, and then this will be 4 and 5 here. So those guys will go to 1, and then we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 going to the other Zuma here on the other side of the bottom. So because these guys aren't mounted yet, I'll probably kind of have like a little bit more of a loose application, because I still have to drill these. I have to drill these lifts in, because I wanted these guys to sit up high enough if Bradford ever had to manually turn something off, he'd have enough height differentiation. But the other thing that risers offer is you have routing channels in here, so it allows me a little bit better ability to be able to get cables from one side to the other, because I can use this channel to route cables through, or even this channel here to route cables through. Let me get a good better view. You can use this channel to route cables through. So that's a good benefit of using risers. Let's break for a second though for some questions. Let's see what we got. Or if we have any questions. Gotta reload my iPad. All right. Let's reload. All right, here we go. All right. Yeah, Planet, you're talking about Robert's thing. Yeah, we'll get to it soon enough. It'll be there. Let's see. Bahia Garden's looking good, yeah. Jenna, my wife, is killing it out there. We've hardly had to even buy any tomatoes, lettuce, so tomatoes, lettuce, eggplant. I'm trying to think what else a lot of chard, a lot of kale. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about being in California, so we can grow this stuff all the time. Let's see. Unknown authorship. I think I would throw my back out lifting that kind of weight. Nice board. I mean, so the surprising thing is this board actually doesn't weigh that much. The pedal boards are pretty light overall. I mean, obviously the weight of the pedals can't be changed, but this in the case will be about 50 pounds. Let's see, Chris Carlson, Bean from Oakland, any pedal recommendations for the Jerry Garcia zone? I mean, I just say get what Jerry Garcia used, and it depends on the era of Jerry Garcia that you want, you know, because obviously the gear changed, there's more availability there's more pedals available the later into his career he got. But I would say that like one pedal, I mean, certainly the envelope filter is one of the key ones. I actually think the great one that you can't really get anymore is the Hartman envelope filter. Was really great for that. But a good one that I think is just like always available and that you can get easily is the Keeley Neutrino is really nice. And if you didn't know, Robert Keeley is like a big Dead fan too. So the Neutrino, the newest one, is pretty cool. It sounds really good. It's easy to use. I think there's also a case to be made for the Qtron. It's like it doesn't, it doesn't do. It has a lot of knobs, but it doesn't. It only has like a couple of really great sounds, but they're really great sounds. Um, so those are good ones. I mean, part of the sound too is like the guitar, the whole alembic system, the effects loop thing in the guitar. There's so many components to it. So I don't know, like, do you want really early Jerry tone? Or you were going for the sound that he had when he used Gator, Tiger? Which version of the guitar, are we talking about? And Pilar was clarifying his question about compressors, and he was asking if a compressor can be fed on the same output with an overdrive. Most of them can be, but it's always best to test. I just keep around a cable that's like a splitter cable, so I can do this test all the time in real time, which makes it pretty easy. Yes, this is Bradford's board, to clarify. For David, Dominique, thank you. Devin Doherty, is it just me or does the Zoya kill your signal when it's in the line? I put mine through my effects loop in the amp. I don't have an answer there. I haven't tried it in isolation, so I don't know yet. I haven't tried it in that context. I've just tried it to make sure that it worked. Because sometimes I'll get pedals here and they don't even work, and that can be a problem. Sure thing, Ren. Yeah, King of Tone, just chilling there. Yep, and it's the one that has the double channel, so you can separate the two channels from each other, which is cool. Hey, Jeremy from Trinidad and Tobago, welcome. Nick Lawler, do you use a steel string? I do, and actually the steel string that's on this board is actually, it's just a placeholder. I have a steel string Supreme for Bradford that he got, and let's see. So you're welcome, Benji, for the 5E3 shout out. Really smart thing about routing spaces under the routers, or under the risers, I think is what you're saying. Yeah, so risers are cool not only because they obviously increase the height of a pedal if you're trying to vary two different staggered heights, but you have the space underneath to route cables through here and cables through here. So if you have kind of a tight setup, it can be really nice just to give you more room to be able to route stuff. And this is from RNGR Zulu. What's the best way or best pedal to adjust the sound of a room? I switch between amp shows and DIs only. I mean, I would say a reverb would be the best way to adjust for the room. Yeah, the sound of the room. Yeah, I'd say reverb is going to be the best you're going to do in a general pedal, unless you have an ability to load IRs of like different room sounds, which stuff like the Two Notes has a lot of those abilities. Yeah, Ren says, have y'all seen Bradford? Yeah, Bradford is, it does Olympic lifts and all that stuff, so he could definitely handle this. Dominique, do you think the ProRat needs a battery or a DC? An easy way to tell, Domi, is I have an old rat here. And this one doesn't have an LED, so this would be hard to tell. But if it has an LED, we'll have to look at the power supply caps. And I don't use a battery on mine. I just run it, with the 1/8" jack. This is I think this is from '85. This one. This is I think that the battery may sound a little saggier, but the consistency of the power supplies, and they're so quiet. I haven't noticed a huge difference in like like all of a sudden I hate my rat when it's on supply. It probably sounds a little, maybe a little saggier on the carbon battery. But if you're using an alkaline or a Duracell, I don't think there'd be any difference. It pretty much to the pedal looks the same as a DC supply. Okay, this is a good thing. Okay, Travis is asking, how do you test your cable to make sure it's put together correctly? Put it on an ohm reader, each tip at the end to make, yeah, so there's a couple ways. So there's like, those devices like the cable testers, and those are good. They show you if you have connection 1-to-1 on each side. But ideally, you want your multimeter, you want to set it to ohms, and then you're going to want to, see, do I have a cable here? I got a cable. So, you'll clip the tip, and on both sides, I'm using alligator clips for this, so it's a little easier than just having like ordinary probes. So I've clipped both sides, and then I should be reading 0. And if you're reading anything else, then that means that you have a problem. So this is kind of the technique that you should be using to ensure that you have that. You can also do it to the sleeve as well, just to make sure that, you can set it to buzz. Let's see. And it'll buzz too to tell you that it's there. And you can also do the same to the sleeve, just to make sure that you have continuity there. And the only reason why I was kind of stuttering is just because I wasn't touching it fully, if not because it wasn't connected right. So that's the best way. That's better than a cable tester. Greg Lewis, when are the new pedalboard riser modules going to be out? So the pedal boards are done. They're going to be out, I think, next week. We're going to start shipping them to Sweetwater. And then the power module will also be ready at the same time. The buffer module will be a couple weeks behind that. But those can be added at any time. Those can be accepted by any pedal board. So every pedal board will already be made to accept it, and then you can choose to buy it or not. And it would already be a separate add-on anyway, so it wouldn't be like you lost out. Analog Blues, how do you match all the pedals, order impedances to play with each other best? Low to high, high to low. Well, typically there's no standards for pedals, so we can't really create an impedance matched order. I would say that usually what the actual combinations are of the pedals and where they sit best in relativity are the more important things, rather than trying to get them all to impedance match. I mean, obviously with the fuzz, we're going to put that first no matter what, because if they're impedance sensitive, we really needed to see the guitar first with no buffered signal. If you're really trying to impedance match after that, for pedals that aren't impedance sensitive or don't have matched impedances, you can do sort of the Pete Cornish technique, where you basically buffer the return of every loop, so basically you're buffered in between every single device, so that you're always getting the same exact input and output impedance of every single loop. But in practicality, it's just not really that easy to do, and most people don't want to pay for that incremental difference. And I don't think it's really gets you that much further anyway than if you just have really good high quality buffers first and last, as much true bypass in between, and just knowing that when the pedals are on, there's going to be some variability, in the tone, but it's manageable, especially if you have those high quality input and output buffers. Captain Chewy, I can get a great tone live, but ones that go on live on Facebook, it's not the same. Well, you probably need some sort of like software, where like a cam link or something like that, so that you can hook that up to your camera, and then you can also use your audio from Pro Tools or from Universal Audio, and then import that as the sound that Facebook hears. So I use Ecamm for all of our streaming stuff, except for right now because I'm just on my phone. I use Ecamm generally, and then I'll use my Apollo as the audio source. So if I'm playing guitar, it's as though it's hearing whatever the DAW gets, like what Logic gets. So it sounds pretty good. Let's see. This dude Sanchez, what type of pedal riser do you use? I need 2 for my big Sky and Stomp. I'm always hitting my Timeline and other pedals. Yeah, so the same company that makes our pedal boards, we have our own pedal boards which have our own hinge risers and stuff like that, but these are the individual ones. These are also made by Fixed Pedal Boards, and so you can buy these. And we're also going to be making some versions that are Vertex versions, where this side is flat completely over, that are not designed for hard mounting. They're designed for Velcro, because these, you have a limited surface area. So sometimes if you're come in all different sizes for all the stuff that you're going to need. So I check over Fixed Pedal Board's website for that. And Travis, you are welcome. I don't know what I did, but all right, Jordan, why does it cost most? Why doesn't most guitar gear use balanced cables as opposed to TS? Some of my rack gear uses balanced connections and it really makes a difference with noise. Well, because everything about guitar is unbalanced. The guitar isn't balanced. Like everything is unbalanced, single-ended. So this is a consequence of the way the instrumentation that we're using, the instruments that we're using. Guitars are unbalanced. There's not balanced guitars. This is just part of using a single-ended system. So there's no benefit of using anything balanced as far as balanced cables are concerned on the guitar rig. It's just impossible based on the type of stuff that we're using. There's guys that claim to do a semi-balanced system, but it's not correct. You can't have a balanced system with a single-ended rig like this and using a passive guitar pickup, and it just doesn't work. It didn't work for our application. For studio applications, it's great, and everything is pretty much balanced in the studio world, but it's not for the guitar rig systems. So you're going against, you'd have to do a tremendous amount of modifications of your rig to even get close to what a balanced system does. But it's unnecessary. Every pedal is that we know and we love, they weren't balanced. Everything that we use as the gold standards for tone, none of those were balanced systems for the guitar rigs. Jam Lobby, greetings to Mason, cool. Gordon Hayes, does your TC2 riser leave enough room off to the side to fit 2 expression pedals? The 2s, no. The 3s, the series where there's a 3, so the Travel Light and the Travel Compact can only do either one wah or expression or volume pedal. But then when you get into the Tour series, the Tour Elite, and I can't remember what the other one is, it's 26 by 14. Those have options for 2 pedals, wah and volume. Do I have one here? Yeah, so here's one. Here's one here. This is the 26 by 14. So I'll show you, let's see, where do I have a wah? All right, so check this out. So you have space for your wah, right? There's your wah. Now let me grab a volume. Or, you could substitute this for an expression. I'm just looking around to see what I got. All right, we're gonna use this Dunlop volume. And you can see you got wah and volume, and they fit. Now this is a little bit shorter of a volume, but you can see you actually have a lot of room here for volume if you wanted a longer volume pedal, or a Boss FV 500 or something, some gargantuan volume pedal that fits. And then also we have a bigger size Tour Elite, which also has that same cutout. So that all works. David, I know you're adamant on soldered cables for guitar signal, but have you tried the solderless power cable from Diodario? Same thing. Solderless is solderless. Doesn't matter what it's doing. Still the same problem. Riddy Mystics. In a pinch, I use Legos to fabricate custom-sized risers. Awesome. Captain Chewie used a pod go behind a Behringer X32 Live. All right. Yeah, Gordon, no problem. And Billy Moore, what guitar amplifiers is your go-to for design and testing? We always use Fender Hot Rod series amps, pretty much for all of our testing. Dylan Lee, what's the total height of the pedals when on top of the hinge? Right now, these are, let's get out the measuring tape. Right now, we'll point it down. So it's a little higher than normal because we're putting these pedals on risers so that Bradford can reach them. This wouldn't be normal for most people, but it looks like the highest pedal is the Cali 76 knobs. So this is 7 inches. 7 inches to here. If this were looking at just the highest of the normal pedals, Chase Bliss is a little higher than normal because it has that taper in the back. That's at 6.5. And then if it were something more like a Strymon, that's like 6. So it gives you kind of an idea there. And truthfully, this couldn't really be much lower because we're already right at the, like if you were to look at the front here, the knobs or where the connectors are here for the RGM, this is sitting like completely flush with that. So it really couldn't be any lower, otherwise it would be impeding here. So this is kind of the height that things need to be in order to make it work. There's not really a workaround, unfortunately. And what you're going in height, you know, if you didn't have the height, then you'd have to add depth in order to accommodate everything. All right. We're gonna do a couple more questions and then we're gonna wrap up for today. Let's see. All right, and Mark asks, what would you test your pedal board on if you're using a Strymon Iridium before you actually connect it to a sound system? Well, you can just bypass the Iridium and make sure everything is working as it should, and then you use the Iridium when you're going direct. So you can pretty much, or you could put the Iridium in a true bypass looper if you really wanted to totally isolate it, because I don't think that they're true bypass, but that would be how I would do it. And when I test them, you pretty much just test it like a regular guitar rig. You just don't use the Iridium. That's how I would treat it. So guys, that was fun. I'm gonna keep working on Bradford's rig here, but before I do, we're gonna go over to our live stream for our paid memberships. And if you don't know what that is, you've never heard of the paid membership option, we have some Patreon options available over on patreon.com/rigdoctor, and you can join up with us as part of the private stream that we do after this, which is more of a one-on-one Q&A that we do that's with a smaller group of folks. And so that just happens right after this. We go right into my office and we'll continue it there. So you can join us over there if you'd like. We also have one-on-one consulting options over on therigdr.com if you want some help with your rig, designing your own signal path. We also have options for free accounts. If you look at all the different versions of the accounts, you're like, man, I can't afford that right now. You're welcome to send us an email and we grant 100% of the requested free accounts, no questions asked. All we ask is that when your financial situation changes and you can't afford it, that you consider becoming a supporting member at that point. So please don't be bashful, or rather, please don't be bashful. Please do join us over on the private stream. We'd love to have you. Again, it happens right after this. If you like what you saw today, give us a thumbs up. If there was a question that you put that we didn't answer, do put that in the comments, and I'll try to get to that over the weekend. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. That was fun. It was cool to hang with you here in the garage. I hope the stream quality was okay. I might need to get a little internet extender out here so that we're really solid. And if this format seems to work better, then maybe we'll consider kind of doing this as a more regular thing from the work area here at home. All right, guys. See you later.